In the year 1218, a Mongol army appeared on the edge of Central Asia, led by one of Genghis Khan's deadliest commanders, Jebi the Arrow. Their target wasn't an empire, it was a man. His name was Kuchlug, once a prince, now a fugitive. His downfall would open the road to Khwarezm and change world history forever. But why did Genghis Khan hunt him? And who was Kuchlug? Before there was Genghis Khan, there was chaos. And among the strongest of the tribes that ruled the steppe were the Naimans, rich, proud, and ancient in their traditions. Their Khan was Taiyang, a seasoned warlord. His son, Kuchlug, young, fiery, reckless, believed destiny itself had chosen him to rule the steppes. When Temujin began uniting the Mongol clans under one banner, the Naimans became the final wall between him and total supremacy. But pride is a dangerous wall. When Taiyang heard that Temujin had declared himself Genghis Khan, he scoffed in fury. Does the sun and moon shine together in the sky? How can there be two Khans on earth at once? I will ride out and crush these Mongols myself. And so, in the year 1204, the two greatest powers of the steppe prepared for war. The place was Chakarmot, the battle later called the 13 Sides. Jamukha, Genghis's old rival, had fled to the Naimans seeking protection. But that alliance would bring only doom. On the eve of battle, Genghis ordered a deception: every warrior to light 5 fires across the camp. When the Naimans looked out across the dark plain, they saw a sea of flames. They believed the Mongol host numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Fear spread before the arrows ever flew. Taiyang hesitated. He wanted to lure the Mongols into the mountains, to make the steppe their grave. But Kuchlug mocked him. Are we lions or sheep hiding in the rocks? Pride overruled wisdom. The Naimans charged, and Genghis, the master of deception, met them not with strength but with cunning. His front ranks feigned retreat. The Naimans pursued, triumphant, until the trap closed. From both flanks, Mongol wings swept in like hawks. Arrows fell like rain. The plain turned red. When it ended, Taiyang Khan lay dying, his army destroyed. The Naiman Empire erased from the steppe. Jamukha abandoned them and fled. It is said Genghis ordered all Naiman males above the age of 3 to be killed, a message to every tribe that still dreamed of resistance. And in that ruin rode Kuchlug, bloodied, defeated, but unbroken. He fled west into the mountains, and the legend of his vengeance had only begun. Kuchlug fled west, across the Irtysh River, his banners torn, his warriors few. Behind him, the Mongols ruled the steppe. Ahead, a forgotten kingdom, Qara Khitai, the realm once called the Great Liao. It was a strange empire, founded by Chinese Khitans ruling over Turks, Persians, and Muslims, a land where Buddhist temples stood beside mosques and caravans from Samarkand passed Chinese envoys on the Silk Road. Its ruler, the Gurkhan Yelu Jilugu, was a cultured monarch. And when Kuchlug arrived in his court, dressed in defeat, but speaking the language of princes, the Gurkhans saw an opportunity. Instead of killing the refugee, he welcomed him, made him a guest, then an ally, and soon a son-in-law, marrying him to his own daughter. For a time, peace. But Kutlug was a wolf dressed in silk. Behind the feasts and flattery, he whispered treason. And when the moment came, he would turn the Gurkhan's throne into his own. Years later, his ambition reached the city of Al-Malik, a Karluk stronghold, and more dangerously, a Mongol vassal. Its ruler, Ozar, was not just any ally. He was married to Genghis Khan's granddaughter. That made Al-Malik sacred ground within the Mongol world, protected by kinship, not just by treaty. When Kutlug besieged the city, killed Ozar, and put his family to the sword, he did more than defy Genghis Khan. He spilled Mongol blood. To attack a vassal was a crime. To kill one bound by marriage was blasphemy. For Genghis Khan, that was enough. Kutlug was no longer a fugitive. He was a marked man. But Genghis did not move with rage. He moved with precision. He sent Jabi, his most relentless commander, with orders not merely to punish, but to erase. Before we see that hunt unfold, we need to understand the kingdom Kutlug had seized, the empire he corrupted, and how a refugee prince became the ruler of Qara Khitai. When Kutlug arrived at the court of the Gurkhan Yelujilugu, the empire of Qara Khitai was already showing its cracks. Once a mighty force, a Chinese Khitan dynasty ruling deep into Central Asia, it was now surrounded by rivals and rebellion. In the west, the Khwarezmian Empire under Sultan Muhammad was growing restless. In the south, the Ghurids had just been defeated, but not pacified. Inside his realm, Muslim nobles, Turkic tribes, and Chinese administrators all pulled in different directions. The Gurkhan needed allies. And so, when the defeated Naiman Prince Kutlug appeared, he saw not a threat, but an opportunity. He welcomed the fugitive. He gave him men. He gave him gold. He even gave him his daughter, Princess Hunhu, in marriage. But what Jalugu saw as a loyal general, Kutlug saw as an old man to be replaced. At first, Kutlug fought the Gurkhan's enemies. He rode against rebels, against the Karluks and the cities that defied Qara Khitai rule. But soon his ambitions grew. Around 1210, while Jalugu was campaigning near Samarkand, Kutlug secretly made contact with Muhammad of Khwarezm, promising to help him gain 2 disputed frontier provinces if the Khwarezmian forces would stay out of his way. With his back protected, Kutlug turned inward and struck. He looted the imperial treasury at Uzgen, turned Jalugu's own troops against him, and when the old emperor tried to regroup, Kutlug ambushed him near Kashgar. The Gurkhan was captured by his own son-in-law. The dynasty of the great Liao, that had ruled for a century, was finished. Now Kutlug sat on the throne of Qara Khitai. But what he inherited was not an empire. It was a house of sand. The Muslim cities, Kashgar, Khotan, Balasagun, distrusted him. They had supported the old Gurkhan for his relative tolerance. Kutlug, a Naiman and a Nestorian Christian by birth, saw them as potential traitors, spies for the Khwarezmian Sultan. So he struck first. He began a campaign of persecution, closing mosques, forcing conversions, taxing the rich merchants of the Silk Road, and executing those who refused. Whether it was religion, politics, or paranoia, it turned the Muslim population against him completely. And that more than any Mongol arrow, would be his undoing. When Jebe's army finally crossed the mountains years later, the people of Qara Khitai didn't resist. They welcomed the Mongols as liberators and betrayed Kuklug at every turn. In 1218, a small Mongol army appeared on the edge of Central Asia, led not by Genghis Khan himself, but by one of his most feared and trusted generals, Jebe the Arrow. But who was Jebe? Jebe's story began with an arrow, the one that nearly killed Genghis Khan. Years before, during the tribal wars, an enemy warrior named Qara shot Genghis's horse in the neck. After the battle, when Genghis demanded to know who had fired the arrow, Qara stepped forward and confessed. He said, "It was I. If you wish, take my life. But if you spare me, I will serve you faithfully." Genghis admired courage more than submission. He pardoned him, renamed him Jebe, meaning the arrow, and made him one of his commanders. From that moment, Jebe lived up to his name. He rose faster than any other man in the Mongol ranks, not by birth, but by brilliance. Jebe wasn't just a warrior. He was a genius of maneuver warfare. He fought in China against the Jin dynasty, where his tricks of feigned retreat and night marches crushed armies 10 times his size. He once lured an entire Jin garrison over 100 miles into the snow, then turned around and destroyed them before sunrise. Even Genghis Khan's other generals, Subutai and Mukhali, considered Jebe their equal. Some historians would later call him the greatest cavalry general in history. So when news reached Genghis Khan that Kuklug, a renegade prince ruling the lands of Qara Khitai, had attacked his vassal city Al-Malik, the Khan did not send an army. He sent a weapon. He sent Jebe. Jebe's orders were clear: find Kuklug, end him. But Genghis gave him only 20,000 men, a small, fast force built for pursuit, not siege or occupation. Jebe would need to win by speed, psychology, and precision, the very tools that made him legendary. Kuklug, meanwhile, was surrounded by enemies. The Shah of Khwarezm, Muhammad II, had helped him seize the power, but now demanded payment. The old Gurkhan handed over, and a Khitan princess in return for his aid. Kuklug stalled, then refused. The Shah retaliated, burning the border towns along the Sir Darya River to create a buffer zone. Two rulers who had once been allies now glared at each other across the desert. And inside Kuklug's own realm, hatred festered. He had abandoned the tolerant rule of the old Gurkhans. He turned on the Muslim majority, forcing conversions, desecrating mosques, even crucifying the Imam of Hotan on his own madrasa door. His cruelty shattered what was left of loyalty. Every border, every tribe, every city was ready to betray him. Kuklug had made many enemies: Muslim merchants, Uyghur traders, Karluk tribes, and the Buddhist elite he'd deceived to seize the throne. Jebe turned those hatreds into weapons. He spread word that the Mongols came not to destroy, but to free. Cities like Kashgar and Balasagun revolted from within, overthrowing Kuklug's garrisons even before Jebe arrived. Without lifting a battering ram, Jebe broke the empire from the inside. Confronted with inside revolt and Jebe's army at his doorstep, Kuklug fled westward, across the Tian Shan, and into the Pamir Mountains, dragging a few thousand loyalists behind him. JB followed. Through snow, rock, and thin air, his cavalry moved light, carrying no supplies beyond what they could seize. They struck like ghosts, cutting off water sources, blocking passes, ambushing stragglers. Jebe didn't need to catch Kuchlug in battle. He only needed to make him run. By spring 1218, the hunt was over. Kuchlug was cornered near the upper reaches of the Oxus River. His last refuge turned against him. Local hunters captured the fugitive and handed him to Jebe's men. The arrow had struck its final target. Kuchlug was executed, his head displayed before the gates of Kashgar. His daughter, Lingun Khatun, was later married to Genghis Khan's son, Tolui, binding even the bloodline of his enemy to the Mongol throne. With Kuchlug dead, the empire of Qara Khitai, the last remnant of the old Liao, vanished from history. The Mongols now controlled the passes of Central Asia. Beyond them lay Khwarezm, one of the richest empires in the Islamic world. And when the Shah of Khwarezm, the same man who once helped Kuchlug rise, dared to kill Genghis Khan's envoys, Jebe would return, this time with Subutai, to unleash a storm the world had never seen.
If you found this story fascinating, subscribe to Warology for more on Genghis Khan's campaigns and the wars that changed the world.